YN and Sophia were twin sisters separated by their parents' divorce. YN moved to the US with their mother, while Sophia stayed in Korea with their father, Mr. Park. After their mother's tragic death, YN lived with her grandmother. Though Mr. Park visited her occasionally, no one knew he had another daughter. The twins looked nearly identical, but a few subtle features made them different. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the beautiful bride gliding down the aisle, her arm linked with her father's. Whispers of admiration floated in the air. Park Sophia looked stunning. But what no one knew, what only the bride and her father shared in silent secrecy, was that the girl behind the veil was not Sophia. It was Park YN. YN kept her gaze low, heart pounding with every step. Her delicate fingers trembled as they clutched her bouquet. As they reached the altar, her father gently placed her hand into Jungkook's. Mr. Park looked at the groom, voice low but steady. "Take care of my daughter." Jungkook smiled warmly, unaware of the truth behind those words. He nodded with a soft, "I will, Dad." A single tear slid down YN's cheek. Jungkook noticed. His brows knit ever so slightly, thinking perhaps Sophia's just overwhelmed. He assumed. But something felt different. Sophia was different today. The ceremony began, and YN stood still, eyes cast downward, her breaths shallow. Jungkook stole glances at her. She looked ethereal, like a dream draped in white. Then the moment, the kiss. Jungkook leaned in slowly, gently, his eyes lingering on hers. Instead of a full kiss, his lips brushed the corner of hers with a tenderness that made her shiver. YN's cheeks flushed crimson. Her eyes dropped again, unable to meet his that he smiled faintly. As guest cheers, Jungkook looked at guest and smile. YN glanced at him. She had secretly admired Jungkook for 2 years. As one of the youngest famous and most successful CEOs in the world, his charm and powerful presence had always captivated her from afar. At the reception, YN and Jungkook barely exchanged words. The atmosphere between them was quiet but tense. After the celebration, they sat side by side in the back seat of the sleek black car heading toward the John mansion, neither speaking but Jungkook taking glances at her and YN lost in thought, just the soft hum of the engine filling the silence. YN sat stiffly, her hands clenched in her lap, heart racing. She didn't dare meet Jungkook's eyes. Afraid one look would reveal the truth, that she wasn't Sophia. She was YN, the hidden twin no one knew existed. This marriage was never meant to be hers. Originally arranged by Mr. John and Mr. Park to save Park Enterprises from collapsing, the deal came with a price, Sophia's hand in marriage. But Sophia had refused, running away just hours before the ceremony. Desperate and terrified of offending the powerful John family rumored to have ties to the underground, Mr. Park made a split-second decision. Damar Park request YN to become Jungkook bride. YN had denied, but Mr. Park begged her, and at last she get ready. No one knew Sophia had a twin, so Mr. Park was at ease, but YN was scared. Living a lie weighed heavily on her. But with everything at stake, she knew she couldn't reveal the truth just yet till Mr. Park tried to find Sophia. YN sat next to a man who believed she was Sophia, his wife. And she had no idea how long she could keep the truth hidden. When they arrived at the Grand John mansion, Jungkook stepped out first and opened the car door. YN stepped out carefully, murmuring a soft, "Thank you." Jungkook gave a small smile, his voice neutral, "Let's go." As they walked toward the entrance, Jungkook noticed her struggling to walk in the heavy gown, her eyes distant. Without a word, he suddenly scooped her up into his arms. YN gasped, caught completely off guard. Her hands flew to his shoulders for balance. "YN, what are you doing?" Jungkook chuckled lowly. "Calm down, Mrs. John. I can carry my wife, can't I?" Too stunned to respond, YN remained silent, worried he'd somehow discover she wasn't Sophia. But Jungkook just smiled softly, walking toward the mansion like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Jungkook, I'm sorry," he began, his voice quieter now. "I know I've been distant, at the business party, at the family dinner. We never really got the chance to know each other." He looked down at her. "Honestly, I didn't plan on marrying this early. But Dad insisted. And maybe it was a good decision after all." At his words, YN's chest fluttered. For the first time, she allowed herself to smile softly, comforted that Sophia and Jungkook weren't close. It means he is not gonna know that she is not Sophia but YN, that maybe, just maybe, she had a chance to write her own story with him. They entered the bedroom. Jungkook gently set her down, and they stood close, so close she could feel his breath on her skin. Her cheeks flushed at his gaze. YN mumbled, I'd like to change my luggage." Jungkook smirked, stepping back slightly and gesturing toward the closet. "Your clothes are already in there, Mrs. John." YN's heart pounded as she stepped into the closet, fingers trembling slightly as she picked out a simple yet elegant nightgown. Thankfully, Sophia and she shared the same size. It was one thing that made this illusion easier to maintain. After her shower, she stepped out quietly, only to freeze in place. Jungkook was already in bed, shirtless, a soft glow from the bedside lamp tracing the sharp lines of his chest and shoulders. His sweatpants hung low on his waist, and he was scrolling through his phone with a relaxed expression. He looked effortlessly handsome, like something out of a dream. She didn't realize she was staring until his eyes lifted to meet hers. Smirking, Jungkook put the phone down. "See something you like?" he teased, startled. YN quickly looked away, cheeks burning. Jungkook stood and walked toward her, his steps slow and deliberate. YN instinctively stepped back, but the walls stopped her retreat. Jungkook kept coming, until he was standing right in front of her. Placing his hands on either side of her head, trapping her, but not threateningly. Her breath caught. "I know your secret, Mrs. Jong," Jungkook said in a low, unreadable voice, eyes fixed on hers. YN eyes widened in panic. Did he know? Did he figure it out? I'm sorry, YN whispered, eyes dropping, voice barely audible. He blinked, a little surprised at her reaction, then softened. Gently, he cupped her face and tilted it up to meet his gaze. "You don't need to apologize for admiring your husband, baby," he said with a half smile, voice teasing. Realization washed over her. He didn't know the truth. He simply thought she was flustered, relieved. She nodded shyly, her cheeks blooming with color. Jungkook studied her for a moment, his gaze dropping to her lips. He leaned in slowly, his voice barely a whisper, brushing against her skin. "Can I?" YN's heart pounded like thunder. Her lips parted, and with a small nod, she gave him silent permission. Jungkook leaned in, his lips brushing YN's with a softness that made her heart skip. His hand slid around her waist, pulling her gently closer, the other cradling her cheek like she was something precious. The kiss deepened, slow and intoxicating, until her hands found his shoulders, holding on as if the world was tilting. His hand moved to the back of her neck, fingers weaving through her damp hair as the kiss turned fervent, hungry yet gentle. A small gasp escaped YN as his tongue found its way into her mouth, exploring her with a kind of reverence she had never felt before. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathless, foreheads nearly touching, their eyes locked. Then, without a word, Jungkook lifted her into his arms. YN gasped, arms instinctively circling his neck, her legs wrapping around his waist. He carried her to the bed, sitting with her in his lap as he captured her lips again, more urgently this time. His hands roamed gently over her body, discovering her with a tenderness that made her heart flutter. When his fingers reached for the ribbon of her nightgown, he paused, breathing shallow, his gaze meeting hers. His eyes asked the question he didn't speak aloud. YN's face turned crimson, but her eyes didn't waver. Slowly, she nodded, silent consent, silent trust. She wanted this. She wanted him. Jungkook's fingers tugged at the ribbon, and the gown slipped from her shoulders. He leaned in again, claiming her lips with a fierceness that made her breath catch. That night, they became more than strangers bound by a name. It was the first time for both of them, and Jungkook was everything YN had imagined, gentle, attentive, and achingly patient. Every kiss, every touch, was filled with a silent promise neither of them voiced. 4 months had passed, and YN and Jungkook had grown closer, their bond deepening with trust and affection. Yet, YN still hadn't revealed the truth. She wasn't Sophia. Fear held her back, especially after witnessing Jungkook's violent anger toward betrayal and learning about his painful past. His mother's cheating on his dad and the divorce that followed had left him despising liars.
Today YN started to feel unusually nauseous and Jungkook was on a business trip. The next day, while accompanying her father for a routine checkup, YN decided to get a blood test. The results left her stunned. She was pregnant. The news stirred a storm of emotions within her, fear, joy, and overwhelming guilt. She realized she could no longer live in this lie. She had to tell Jungkook the truth, that she wasn't Sophia, but YN. And now carrying his child, determined, she planned that yesterday she will surprise him with the pregnancy news by cooking all his favorite dishes and the truth of her identity, hoping her warmth would soften the shock. Unbeknownst to her, on the very same evening, Jungkook was on a business trip and was finalizing plans for a candlelit dinner the next night, ready to confess something he had never admitted before, his love for her. The next day at 6 feet 0 inches clock YN was in the kitchen helping the maids cook Jungkook's favorite dishes when she suddenly heard the sound of his car. Her eyes widened in surprise. He wasn't supposed to be home yet. Not wanting to ruin the surprise, she quickly told the maids to continue and rushed to the living room. As Jungkook entered the mansion, his steps paused when he saw YN. A soft smile tugged at his lips as he opened his arms. Without hesitation, YN walked into his embrace. "I missed you," Jungkook murmured. Holding her close, "I missed you too," YN said, smiling as she buried her face in his neck. He little pulled out and leaned in for a kiss, but she gently placed her hand on his lips. "You should take a shower, you must be tired from your flight." Jungkook chuckled warmly. "Of course, my princess. As you say." As YN gently stepped back from Jungkook's embrace, he turned to head upstairs, but before he could take another step, a sudden voice rang from the main door. "Jungkook." Both YN and Jungkook turned toward the source. Standing there was a woman neither of them expected to see, her forehead wrapped in a bandage, and a trembling expression on her face. YN's heart stopped. It was Sophia. Jungkook stared, stunned. The woman looked almost similar like his wife. "Jungkook, who are you?" The injured woman stepped further into the house, tears glistening in her eyes. She wiped them quickly and said, voice quivering, "I'm your fiance." "Sophia." Jungkook stood frozen, disbelief flooding his features. "What?" He snapped, his voice rising. "Stop joking, you're not Sophia." "My wife is Sophia." "You're not her. What kind of prank is this? Get out of my house." YN opened her mouth, about to speak, but Sophia stepped forward, her voice steady despite the tears. "No, Jungkook. I am Sophia. Your fiance. That woman you're married to, she's my twin sister YN." She pretended to be me this whole time. The room fell into silence. Jungkook's gaze slowly turned to the woman beside him, the woman he thought he knew, trusted, loved. He stepped closer, voice softer now, laced with desperation. Sophia. Tell me she's lying. Please. Hwayeon's lips trembled. Her eyes brimmed with tears she could no longer hold back. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. I'm sorry, Jungkook. I'm not Sophia. I'm Hwayeon. Shock crashed over him like a wave. He staggered back a step, his mind reeling. Everything he believed. Every moment, every promise, it had all been based on a lie. Without a word, Jungkook grabbed a nearby vase and hurled it to the ground. It shattered into pieces, echoing like thunder in the stillness of the room. Both sisters flinched, tears streamed down Hwayeon's cheeks. Her chest ached watching the man she loved unravel. She had known this moment would come, but not like this. Not this painfully. As Hwayeon stepped closer, desperate to explain, Jungkook held up his hand, his voice cracking with disbelief. Tell me this is a prank. That you're my wife, Sophia. Hwayeon froze. Her heart ached as she looked down, voice trembling. I'm sorry, Jungkook. I lied to you. I'm Park Hwayeon, Sophia's twin sister. Jungkook's world shattered in that instant. His breath hitched, heartbreaking. But please, Hwayeon stepped forward, just least, stay away from me. Jungkook roared, his eyes burning with betrayal. You're a liar. How could you do this to me, Jungkook? Please, Hwayeon whispered, trying to hold herself together. I don't want to see your face, Sophia. Jungkook was angry. No, Park Hwayeon. You lied so easily. Sophia stood silently behind, watching with an unreadable expression, a faint smirk on her face. Pregnancy emotions overtook Hwayeon, and her pain burst out. You're not even giving me a chance to explain. Hwayeon cried, voice shaking. Get out of my sight. Jungkook barked. No. Hwayeon shouted back. Not until you hear me out. Get out of my house, Park Hwayeon. Jungkook thundered, his voice echoing off the walls. I don't want to see your face ever again. Hwayeon stood frozen. His words struck like daggers. Her chest heaved with emotion, tears streaming freely. I said get out, damn it, she whispered, barely audible. Fine. With trembling steps, her vision blurred by tears, Hwayeon turned and walked away, her heart breaking with each step. Jungkook watched Hwayeon walk away, every part of him wanting to run after her, but his anger held him back like chains. With a loud crash, he slammed his fist into the glass table beside him, shattering it to pieces. Sophia flinched at the sound, standing silently nearby. Realizing Sophia was there, Jungkook looked at her with red, furious eyes. I'm sorry, Jungkook, Sophia said softly, stepping closer. Because of me, you and Hwayeon fought. On the other side, Hwayeon stood silently, her hand resting on the cold pillar for support. Tears slipped down her cheeks without her even realizing. Gently, she placed both hands on her stomach and whispered softly, don't worry, baby. Dada is just angry. He'll be alright after some time. Taking a shaky breath, she walked toward her car, her steps slow and heavy. Slipping into the driver's seat, she fastened her seatbelt, her vision blurred with tears. She started the engine with trembling fingers and drove off toward the Park mansion, her father's house, hoping for comfort and strength in his presence.
You were the best, but you were the worst.